one of the cars that we haven't actually talked about yet is the new 2013 Malibu, which was shown here. It's interesting because I cover green cars. There have been essentially no plug-in announcements here, unlike Detroit, where everybody trotted out their more futuristic cars. You know, Mitsubishi priced it fine, but other than that, this has really been a show about volume cars, all of which get better mileage. You have the Malibu, and they're going to have a Malibu Eco model, as they do a Cruise Eco model. Mm-hmm. Then in the compact area, you have the, let me get this right now, you have the Subaru Impreza, you have, what am I missing?
Civic? No.
The Honda Civic, thank you.
Okay.
In 5 different versions, 3 of which are green-ish at various levels. And then on the subcompact end, you've got the Kia Rio, you've got the Hyundai Accent, and it's arguably subcompact, pushing into compact territory. You also have the Nissan Versa.
Of course, you can't forget we're sitting in the midst of the Sky Active display.
Of course, the Mazda 3 Compact, and this is a car that everyone points to as the enthusiast favorite in the segment. And while the Focus and the Cruise and the Elantra have eclipsed it to some extent because they're just great consumer cars all around, you know, this is the car that we all like to drive.
And with the diesel.
And with the diesel coming, not confirmed.
Yeah.
The other news from Mazda, of course, was production version of the CX-5, their new crossover. We've seen the concept before in Geneva's auto show. It's still out here in the same shape. I don't think that the shape is going to change a lot going into production. It's pretty beautiful. Looking at it right here on the stand, it really renders well. It looks bigger than the current car, so I think they're going to do well with it.
And Mazda's taking an interesting tack. You hear way more about plug-ins and electric cars and hybrids than is maybe justified, because the bulk of the cars that we drive for the next 20 years are still going to be liquid fueled with gasoline or diesel. Mazda is saying we're going to focus on squeezing every drop of efficiency, and this morning they told me they think they can get 40% more efficiency out of gasoline engines, and they are lightening their cars, they're tuning their engines, they're working hard on the combustion process, and so mid-cycle, now the Mazda 3 gets that magic 40 miles a gallon highway, which is the new benchmark really for complex.
I think that he hit a good point, the lightning thing. Ford, but honest to God, the largest offender in this whole country, in my opinion, is GM. They are so fat and overweight. The platforms themselves.
Well, how are they going to take out weight? Ford says that they're doing it with different materials, technologies, better computer construction, different ways of modeling bodies that they're stronger. But there's only so much that you can do. You can't make a 4-door Malibu a 2,000-pound car.
But a 4-door Malibu that weighs hundreds and hundreds of pounds more than a Sonata.
In its old form. The new form...
I still believe it's heavier.
I don't know. When they release final specs, we'll come back and we'll do another video, and then you can...
It's based on the platform, though, that the Regal is based on, which the Regal is already itself.
It's one of the heavier cars in the class. In that class, the benchmarks have been the Passat and the Sonata, both about 3,300 pounds. This new Malibu shrinks to their size, so yeah, I'll be curious to see how much it ends up weighing.
And to that point about lightning, Mazda says they think they can take 200 kilos, which is 440 pounds, out of each successive generation for 3 generations of cars.
Of each car or just one car?
Of each car. I actually
That's
hammered
impressive.
on that. That is an aggressive goal. Now, a generation lasts 8-9 years, so we're talking
a lot of advanced materials technology.
But
every car will become this size.
Well, and it's from talking to them, it's a lot of attention to every single detail. If you only have a single engine, you don't have to engineer for a V6. Everything just sort of shrinks down to the minimum necessary. And they already did it with the Mazda 2, one of the very few cars in 2007 that was lighter than its predecessor.
Could you imagine a 400-pound lighter Miata?
I really couldn't. You probably could, though, because you probably built it in your garage.
Well, yeah, mine is about 150 pounds lighter than stock.
150?
But, yeah, the Superlight, actually, the concept, which doesn't have a window frame, but it was 2,200 pounds, which is 300 pounds lighter than your average MX-5. So
yeah, well, that's
supposedly
back to what it was.
a preview of what it, yeah, that's back to the original.
The original was a 2,200-pound car, yeah.
So,
all right, since you've all weighed in on your choices, I'm going to take the choice that I thought Nelson would have grabbed right off. It's off-frame right now. It's the Scion FRS. All right, this is my time.
Well, he said no, so I was able to.
No, this is my time, and I'm going to tell you why it was important. It was not only the first time that a Toyota executive used the word frigate in a press conference, it's also a sign that Toyota is now comfortable that they're one of the world's best automakers. Their entire race through the 80s, the 90s, and the 2000s was to prove that they were the equal of General Motors or Ford And now that they've done it, now they can let some expression into their cars. I know we're tired of seeing this concept. This is the 5th time we've seen a concept car based around this idea, but now it's beautiful. I've seen the different versions of it as they've come along. This has a beautiful shovel nose. It has some great details that they've obviously cribbed from the LFA front and rear. It's something unique. Every time they've designed a car before, you can either call it beautiful or well detailed. And I think this one does it. It certainly does it for me. I don't know how much of that is going to make it to production, but if it's
That's what I was gonna say.
if it's 80% close, it's a win.
So Toyota is in fact now a confident world-class automaker. Whose engine is it in that car?
It's an alliance partner, let's say. There was a funny point in the press conference where they said, Toyota's history, the long history of 2000 GTs and Supras, and the flat 4 in this car.
Yeah.
And a friend of ours pointed that out, that a flat 4 isn't really what Toyota's been known for making. But,
The answer to that question is super.
I know the answer. I was getting there. There's no
Sorry.
shame in co-developing a partner like that.
Especially with a good partner like that.
Right, and if it turns out as beautiful as that.
I don't know.
I want to see it to believe it.
Why don't you like it?
As far as I'm concerned, we're talking about a unicorn. Right? This does not exist.
It's vaporware.
It's been 2 years on the show circuit. It's had not a single. I mean, we have spy shots of one running prototype. It
Well, it's
is
not
not
like-
a real car
Okay, so
until I see them in dealerships.
And
right,
even if
all
it is a
right,
real
all right.
car, it is not going to be that aggressive. This is Toyota. Look at the Corolla.
Well, they'll
Corolla's a
find
whole
a way to
different
suck the
generation.
fun out
Well,
of it.
we're
But the
talking about-
Scion should be good. So should the Subaru.
all of those things happen in a different world. You're talking about before a financial crisis, before recalls, before earthquake. I mean, this is a car that's been developed over time. It's been halted in development because of different business.
This sounds a lot like the LFA.
Well, that was, and that it still came out pretty spectacular, didn't it?
Yes, it did.
Right.
Well,
so I'm
yeah.
going to give them credit for what came out with the LFA. They changed body structures. They went from steel car to a carbon fiber car.
They developed the loom.
Let's give them a pass on this. It's been 5 years since we started talking about it, and the world has kind of collapsed around them since then, literally and figuratively.
I hope, though, at the same time they're also sticking to their knitting, because the compact or C-segment class is the world's largest volume class. It's now clearly the most competitive, and it's one that's going to be increasingly important in America.
Yeah.
Where mid-sized cars were 10 years ago, or even 10 years ago, people were mostly buying pickup trucks. But 5 years ago, where mid-sized cars were, now it's what we call compacts, because there's bracket creep and they're bigger, they're certainly much better featured, they get way better mileage. The Corolla is now, I think, the oldest entry in that class. It's one of the dowdiest, it's one of the least well-equipped. They'd
That's-
better have a new Corolla that can compete with the best of the class.
It was just
That is-
updated.
No, it was mild reskin before a full new car, but that's the right point, John. That since the Corolla's been new, we've had Elantra, we've had Focus, we've had cars that completely reset the normal recommendations we would all give. I think 10 years ago you would default to recommend a Civic or a Corolla to someone. Now the default recommendations, at least for me, are an Elantra or a Focus.
And to your point about GM, Joel, Chevrolet now has a viable vehicle, the Cruze. It
Cruze,
may not
yeah.
be the
Another
top of
great car.
everybody's list. It's the quietest one on the highway that I've driven out of any of those cars.
When people come to me and say, what should I buy if I was looking at this car, I said, if you want fun to drive, you're going to get a Focus or a Mazda 3. If you want the best bang for your buck, an Elantra. If you want the largest and best highway riding quietest, you're going to get a Cruze. I mean, it's just all what you're looking for in that class, really.
And GM's never had a competitive car in
No,
that segment in 30
not in my
years.
lifetime.
So
Right.
that in and of itself is an
Yeah,
advance.
you didn't need to bring up the thing about your lifetime part. Since John and I have lived out your lifetimes a couple
Twice.
times over at this point. With that, we need to sum it up. We're all exhausted. We've covered the New York show from top to bottom. Tons of photo galleries, live videos on the sites. Come to us at thecarconnection.com, motorauthority.com, Green Car Reports, All Cars Electric, Family Car Guide, and see everything that we have at highgearmedia.com. For this show, it's a wrap. Thanks, guys. We'll see you next time.